Scotland squad for the Six Nations 2025 has been announced, folks. The injury list is missing a few key guys. Kyle Steyn unavailable, Hastings, Muncaster and Redpath likewise, at least initially for the first couple of rounds, but all could potentially feature later on. There are a couple of uncapped players, a Kiwi in Fergus Burke, who was potentially also England qualified as well, but Scotland have snapped him up, and then Jack Mann, the Lucy, has also managed to get himself a call-up, so big congratulations to those two lads. We'll go through the squad without Johnny Matthews. I'll get to some stats on that in a second, but we'll go through the squad, the fixtures list, and you guys let us know your thoughts on how you reckon Scotland could go in this 2025 edition. They've gone with 3 Edinburgh hookers. No spot for Johnny Matthews. Ashman, Harrison and Cherry are the 3 hookers. I thought Dave Cherry's days in Scotland colours were done after the kind of off-field debacle that we all heard about and there were rumours about and whatnot. But no, he's back into the squad. There's no Johnny Matthews. Sometimes when we're talking about the kind of Johnny Matthews omissions in the past, it always comes up, well, he's a bit old. He's in his 30s. Well, Dave Cherry's bloody 34. He's older than Johnny Matthews. I had to run the numbers. What's Johnny Matthews' key weakness in his game? I had a look at the URC stats. He's played the most minutes of these 4 lads with 397. Patrick Harrison's the closest with 378 and Ashman's at 325. Dave Cherry's only fewer than 200 minutes. But if you're looking for run meters, he's pretty good. He's had the most, has Johnny Matthews, which is not necessarily why you pick a hooker, but he's had the most. If you were breaking it down per 80-minute chunk, he's slightly behind Patrick Harrison, but it's much of a muchness, whereas Ashman and Dave Cherry are miles behind. If you want to look at turnovers won, Dave Cherry has the best kind of per 80-minute total, but Johnny Matthews would be second. If you want to look at tackles made, Johnny Matthews has made the second most, but per 80-minute total is slightly behind the other guys, but we're talking about 10 tackles per 80 minutes compared to 11 or 12. So he's not stupidly behind everyone else. He busts a lot of tackles, so does Patrick Harrison, but yeah, and he scores tries. I don't get it. Maybe there's some other stat like rucks or line-out numbers that these guys have got. Maybe he's just a bit of a twit off the field. I don't know. Like I mentioned, Dave Cherry, I thought he'd been punished for that in the past, but no Johnny Matthews. Just seems bizarre. You've also got Dylan Richardson there who can play hooker or loose forward, so he gives you some versatility options in that regard. Batty, Fagerson, Hurd, Ray, Schoeman and Sutherland are the props. You feel like it's the Fagerson and Schoeman show with everyone else just kind of there for the bench roles, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. Locks, I am very pleased with the return of Johnny Gray. I think legit a couple of years ago, my favourite Scottish player by some distance. Even if he's not like Finn Russell, who's just doing stupid, beautiful passes and kicks and setting up plays and scoring tries. Johnny Gray just tackles the bloody house down. You can argue he's a bit one-dimensional, but I freaking love him. Genuinely one of my favourite players in the game. So him being back is phenomenal news. Can he break up the Gilchrist and Cummings lock-in duo, which we have seen, pretty stable over recent times? If you saw the 2024 depth chart analysis, yep, it was those 2 guys largely. Marshall Sykes is the only kind of other lock in the mix, and then plenty of loosies. You got Bayliss, Brown, Crosby, Darge, who is a vice captain, Dempsey, Fagerson, Jack Mann, as I mentioned, who's one of the uncapped guys, and Jamie Ritchie. So I think you feel like Dempsey at number 8 is a hard man to displace. Darge is going to be number 7, and then who do they go with at number 6? You certainly have a load of options, but hopefully Jack Mann gets a debut at some point as a reward for his form. Gregor Townsend did say in the kind of squad announcement video that he's really pleased with the resilience he's shown after having kind of a injury disrupted early part to his career to come back in even better form. So you guys have had good loosies for a long time. Even back when Hamish Watson was dominant, he can't even make the team in kind of recent times, and you got Muncaster who's out injured. You guys have got plenty of loosies. Backs, Dobby, Horn and White are the 3-9, so there's no spot for Ali Price, which I don't really have a big problem with. I think you've got your 3 best guys there, and Dobby, kind of like Richardson, can fill in those two not necessarily pairing positions, and that he can play halfback and out on the wing. Like, there's not many teams which have guys which play these kind of weird combos. Like, there's been a few guys, like Francois Houcart used to do it for the box as well, play 9 and on the wing. So Jamie Dobby just gives you that bit of extra option at 9 if you want to play him in a kind of experimental position. And then 10s, Fergus Burke, the Kiwi who's been playing his rugby for Saracens, he's got a Scottish, I think, granddad. So he gets the call up. Gone is Ben Healy. I mean, his stocks have really fallen in recent times, and the fact that Hastings is out injured maybe leaves the door open for Burke to kind of slot in. And, Gregor just talked about wanting to find out about him as a person and as a player. So it didn't sound like he's necessarily going to chuck him in the deep end, but wants to see what he's like in the squad. The fact that Russell's there and he's one of the other kind of leaders in the group, you feel like he's definitely going to start. Him ahead of Burke and Tom Jordan kind of makes sense. Tom Jordan's versatility may relegate him to the bench, but he's, we've only seen him a couple of times or 3 times for Scotland thus far, and he looked pretty sharp at test level, which was pleasing. Midfielders, Curry, Hutchison, Jones, McDowell, and captain Sione Tuipulotu. It's hard to break up the Tuipulotu and Jones combo, like I mentioned in the kind of depth chart vid, but you feel like centre is another area where the Scots' depth is looking particularly pleasing. And then outside backs, Graham, Rowe, Van der Merwe, and Kinghorn. Obviously, it'd be great to have Kyle Steyn there because he is such a consistent presence, but a back 3 of Duhan van der Merwe, Darcy Graham, and Blair Kinghorn is pretty flippin' sexy. Very attacking. So, yeah, hard to complain. So there's lots of areas of strength in the Scottish squad, even if there's no Johnny Matthews, who I don't think, based on the limited stats that I looked at, or his age, deserves to be omitted. But hey, there may be other information available which we don't have. Fixtures list, I don't think is the best for the Scots. Like, you've got 3 home games, sure, but you've got Italy and Wales at home. You'd rather have those away. But that being said, you lost to Italy last year away, didn't you? In a game which you probably could have won, should have won. But yeah, you got to win those 2. Ireland at home is a nice one to have at home, but Ireland have been a very tough prospect for Scotland. They just seem to kind of cancel that Scottish attack out in recent years. So Ireland will go into that one as favourites, despite the fact that it is a Scotland home game. But imagine if you guys can get the first 2. Then it's all on, because the away game at Twickenham, historically, that's been a nightmare. But in recent years, it's been cracking. Scotland have had a good run in the Six Nations over England. So, man, I always get my kind of hopes up for Scotland prior to the Six Nations. Well, if you win that one, and if you win that one, and then if you win that one. Wales at home and then France away. Man, I would love it if Scotland are just in it with a week to go. Like a trip to France to potentially play spoilers or upset, put yourself in the contention come that last week would be phenomenal. It doesn't tend to pan out that way, but I would love to see it. But yes, that is the Scottish squad. Like I mentioned, there's a few injuries which are disrupted, but some of these guys should be back. A couple of uncapped guys who may or may not get a crack, and I do feel like some pretty solid depth, particularly the midfield's looking good, the Lucy looking good, the return of Johnny Gray I think bolsters the locks pretty substantially, so some pretty good looking areas for this Scottish side. You guys let us know your thoughts. Can they play dark horse, or do you think it'll be another 3rd place season for the Scots? What do you reckon is like potentially possible? Where are the expectations going to be at? You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.